Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Untitled Anti-China show. This is Zion. It has been a year since we last updated, and I'm sorry for the waiting, but here we are. And today we're very honored to have Ruth return as our guest. So Ruth is a passionate Dianya and Yunnan patriot, but she is now more an activist promoting the independence of Yunnan in the United States. She has graced our show before, and she will be sharing her insights and experience with us again. Just a little recap. In her previous appearances, Ruth has provided a very valuable perspective on the struggle of the people in Yunnan. She told me before that it is the reason why she has actively participated in the street protest nowadays, organized by various activists from Hong Kong, East Turkestan, Tibet, and Taiwan. So today we're going to delve into this aspect of her activity and focusing on the evolving view on Yunnan independence after a year of engagement with different activists and movements. So please join us in discovering this new journey of Ruth. First of all, welcome, Ruth.
Hi, thank you, Zan. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to come to this podcast again. Yeah, I feel nothing changed.
Oh yeah. I guess we'll just start right away. Our audience can watch our last episode to sort of get the idea of Yunnan independence. But now we want to know that after a year since we last spoke, you've been actively involved in street protest. And attending street protests, as we know, can be both empowering and challenging at the same time. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about some of the most memorable moments when you are doing all those activities for the past 1 year?
Sure. So actually, I didn't attend so many protests because the area I'm living now is not like full of the political propagandas. But I do attend it for one, which is a very famous people from China who attended in California and to had a talk with President Biden. If you're following this events, you will know what I'm talking about. I attended that protest is a protest in front of where the meeting started. So actually, if you went to some protest which is directly, if, for example, leaders will directly attend it, you will see a totally different scene. Let me make an example. Last time when I went to the activities, you won't see so many little pinkies. But this time, the events I attended was first some people use buses to organize so many, including students and some middle-aged uncles and aunties went there and even prepared everything they need. For example, the national flags and slogans, and they even make the plan how to say welcome, and they are very organized when I first saw them. Compared to them, the people who go to protest, the meeting is more like spontaneous and mixed with so many organizations, including like Chinese democratists or Falun Gong people or some people like us. So at the first time, you would think maybe Little Pinky is kind of a well-organized groups, but by the time goes, you'll notice that the Little Pinkies have no real passion, or only one or two of them have the real passion to welcome Xi Jinping, and they only came for maybe they can get a free lunch, or just because their neighbor asked them to do so, or even their university and the student union asked them to do so. And I even overheard someone were talking about, hey, which position of the Chinese officer you want to be after you went back to China? And another answered, I want to be blah, blah, blah. So I know I should attend these events, although I don't care about this and I have a deadline in my university. And I only saw one woman really be super passionate to welcome the president of China. And she really hates she's literally hating us and trying to make obstacles for us. For example, she trying to hide our slogans with her slogans and the national flag of China, and she'll use something like a very powerful voice to play some national song of China and to cover our voices. But only her is doing that. Other people don't care about that at all. They even thought she's too loudly and ask her if she can turn the voice a little bit lower. On the other side, we, the people who be against with Xi Jinping and this meeting, at first time, the number of people was quite smaller than the little pinkies. But since time went on, most of us still have a very high passion to do what we were doing and didn't show any laziness or boredness to these activities. And we'll spontaneously organize some protest slogans and we shout out together. Let me tell you a very funny story. At the first time, we are saying something like China out, something like this, and we do several turns. At this point, some little pinkies also want to do so, and their slogan is something like, okay, beat down the anti-revolutionist. But then one of the little pinkies organizers said, hey, don't shout that, because we don't know who you are referring to. You might referring to you might referring to President Xi or someone like this. So don't shout anything. And the little pig said, then what should we say? Should we say nothing? And the organizer said, yes, just shut up.
Shut up. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the time when I think it's in the Tibet street protest and Tibetans would shout free Tibet and like the little pinkies sometimes they would shout free China.
Free China.
Yes.
And they said, no, don't say free China or you will become anti-revolutionist.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's so funny, and that's very lively lesson to let others know why Chinese people always say something super confusing to other nations. Like when you tell them, okay, I don't support free Tibet or free Hong Kong, but I hope all the China can be free. They will be triggered and be very angry. But at the same time, you might think, okay, you guys are very unfortunate, so I will support you to get democrat. They will also be very angry. And the reason why they're very easy to be triggered is here. Although it seems they have a lot of people, and at the first time you will think they're very well organized. They have, like I mentioned, buses and they have flags and slogans. Some of them even wear the same suit. But actually, they're all organized by some horror or something maybe they thought is very bad. For example, the Chinese student I mentioned, they come to this event just because they are afraid if they back to China some days, they can say they did something for their home countries. Most of Chinese people will hate them and they can't get a job, something like this. So I think most of the little pinky protests are actually very fragile and easy to get collapsed or bankrupt. But at the same time, you have to be in one of the very well organized group, or you have to have some friends who are willing to do so, and you can do something spontaneously. That's the only way to be anti little pinkies and act better than them. Otherwise, you will be shocked or be very not very shy, but be afraid of them. That's why I saw someone always said, hey, I have a political depression because I'm really afraid of Chinese government. I know my personal information, and all of my classmates are little pinkies. I don't know how to do. Actually, the answer is very easy. Just go and just be brave. That's the very simple answer. Just be brave. I mean, if you are in the free world like the United States, you will find so many people there already hate or don't like little pinkies, and you will also find so many people. Although the number of you might be minority, but trust me, if you go to one or two activities, you will find you can be well organized and practice much better than the little pinkies who were motivated by their horrors.
Some of these circumstances very complicated. I mean, I find things may vary very much because, as you said, I also observed that sometimes the little pinkies or Chinese people in general, they're not that brave
Mhm.
and we're organized in a lot of the street activities like they
Mhm.
like they wanted to be. So, for example, in some of my activities on the street, I can see Chinese people they came close with a grumpy look, and you might think that they want to do something or even express their anger, but no, they would just stare at you like angrily and then leave. But I mean,
Yeah.
at the same time, we can also find some examples of the other end of the spectrum. For example, like I
Mhm.
think it's recently that in a university in California or the East Coast, I think a
Yeah.
Chinese students threatened another Chinese student who is for the A4 movement. Like he threatened to
Uh-huh.
cut her hands off or something like that. So we can also see
Wow.
that they are actually dangerous Chinese students. But how come?
Mhm.
Like, do you have a theory for that? Why are they at the same time not brave and not organized, but sometimes they are dangerous or they seems to be like that?
Yeah, actually, I've already mentioned it. The answer is you have to be more well organized than Chinese people. That's a very easy answer, but don't forget most of Chinese students, if they were born in China and at least finished the primary school education, they will be not naturally, but they have strong tendency to be separated and be isolated with the groups or even the very basic friend groups. Like if you have a group of close friends, maybe your monitors in your primary school will say, hey, you're doing something bad because you are making some small organizations, which is not good. So by this potentially mind wash, most of Chinese students will have a tendency to isolate themselves. At the same time, they know what they are doing is very dangerous. So they will try their best to keep their personal information as safe as possible. Some of them, according to what I know, is trying to use anonymous SNS or trying to use the automatically deleted. Some SNS have the service like you can automatically delete some messages to keep them be very safe. But that's just as be safe in the message or information dimension. But everyone's living in real society and living on this earth physically. So although they can try to keep some little pinkies can't match the online image and the offline person at the same time, but they still have some chance to be recognized. If they were recognized, the Chinese student can actually take an advance to them because CCP are trying to make all the like overseas Chinese student union as a branch of Chinese embassies. So they are actually control the campus by such kind of like students unions. But on the other hand, if you want to be some anti-CCP international students, you have to start by yourself. You have to at least build the connection with other students to make sure you are not alone. Maybe this sounds very easy to other students who from other countries because they are too familiar to do something like this. For example, they might have their own sport teams. They might do their like church services, and they naturally know how to make friends and make organization and build connection to others. But for Chinese students, if you don't know such kind of basic or tactic knowledge, it's very difficult for them to protect themselves from the Chinese government, especially when you're alone. The physical violence is a very big problem you have to face. So I'm not sure if someone will listen to this podcast, but I do want
I
to
certainly hope so.
remind you. Yeah, but I do want to remind you, unless you know someone reality physically and you're very sure they will help you when you're facing some extreme situations like what I mentioned before. Otherwise, don't just playing online or just surfacing online. It will be a huge disadvantage for this kind of brave young people.
Oh yeah, I like what you said, the connection. From what I know, connection is also very basic, let's just say basic for the politics in North America. But unfortunately, a lot of the students or youngsters from China, they are born to be afraid of connection, to connecting to other people, especially politically.
Yes.
And so I really appreciate you bring this topic to the table. So um, I want to ask that, during the past years, what kind of connection did you make, like in terms of promoting Yunnan independence?
Mhm. Actually, since this year, we started trying to connect some international friends, for example, Tibetans and Vietnamese. Because, by the way, when I introduce Yunnan to other foreigners, I would say I'm from Yunnan directly, and they definitely don't know where it is. And I can just mention, oh, it's between Tibet and Vietnam. At that point, they will say, sorry, my geography is very bad. I still don't
Yeah.
know where it is. And I would say, yeah, just like Tibet, it was independent, but now it becomes part of China.
Mhm.
So I call this in 30 sentence to introduce Yunnan. It does make sense and works very well. And also, according to our friends' suggestions, I naturally think if I can connect to either Tibetan friends or Vietnam friends, because first we have a very common cultural background, which we can share with each other. And second, physically, they're literally our neighbors. So if really want to become independent, actually, two biggest power we need to gain is, of course, Tibet and Vietnam. So by some chance, I got to know one of the Vietnamese leaders in California. When I connect to him, he was super, like also super passionate, and even he's literally senior and have a very great, actually has a very great name in Vietnam communities. He's still like very friendly to us and trying to help us without ask anything from us. So we went to their Lunar New Year celebration. I was shocked when I went there because they actually make the celebration in the city hall, and the mayor attended their celebration. I was very surprisedly finding out that actually the image in Americans' mind, which shaped the Chinese culture and the Lunar New Year culture, is actually made by Vietnam communities. For example, like the dragon play and the lion play is actually most of the American, when they saw such kind of plays, it was played by Vietnamese rather than Chinese, because most of Chinese dragon plays and lion plays are held by CCP community leaders, and they're not willing to invite foreigners to attend such kind of events. So first, Vietnam communities already have the power or influence to shape the so-called Asian image in mainstream American society. And second, when I attend the celebration, there are a lot of people who wearing the military suit, which means they're still remembering the bad influence from the Vietnam War. And by the military rank, they were organized very naturally and still remembering it every year. Maybe I told the friends who went with me, if Yunnan is also can have one or two generals and one or two troops came to here, maybe I would be one of their children here, and we'll call ourselves Yunnan very more naturally, but we just don't have any people here. And we don't have any organized communities was directly moved from Yunnan to here. So that's the big problem we're facing too, and which is also a part I'm super jealous to Vietnamese.
Yeah, definitely. I
But
think I also envy the Vietnamese community, even though that I have not so many personal contacts with them. But I would say that they have like a strong cultural influence to at least the West Coast culture of American culture already. So that when you think of Vietnamese, you're not necessarily thinking of the communists, although that the communist side do leave a very deep impression. But still, you will think of the American Vietnamese who is very protective of their culture and very proud of their community and all that. And I think in some way it's a perspective of the narrative as well, because we know that Yunnan have like very strong pride in the community, and they also have like military tradition. You have the Long Army, right? Not in
Yeah.
the States, but in Thailand. So,
Yes.
I mean, it's if we change a narrative, people might be, or people from Yunnan might be remembering them more, or build their identity based on that.
If the Long Army were moved from Thailand to America, maybe first they can call themselves Yunnanese rather than Chinese earlier than
Mhm.
what we're looking for. And second, I'm not sure whether the KMT propagandas will have a bad influence on them, but let's say it's just a hypothesis. I think most important thing is like they can keep a complete community from the very very old leader to very young kids. So of course in America you have more way to make your own live rather than like the non-armies. They almost surviving to eat and live in Thailand. So that's something I really want it become true, but actually didn't. And a third about Vietnamese community is that they are actually paid back to the American society. What I mean a payback is they are actually giving the good influence to the mainstream society. A lot of small cities in California are bothered by the homeless people problem and the drug problems, right? Some cities which has almost no Vietnamese communities are full of like thieves, and not all homeless people is bad. I mean, and the drug dealers. In that kind of city, you even can't walk on the street. You better to drive because you're afraid of some violent situations. But the city I went to attend this celebration, I noticed most of the streets are relatively clean, and they have no very big problems like the San Francisco city. They have no big
Yeah.
problems on the city cleanness and some drug problems like that. And I thought maybe that because of the Vietnamese peoples are trying to solve these problems. According to what I saw, the mayor attended to their celebration, and some of them are also become the politicians in that city. So which means first this city are under their control. They are very good at organize their own community, as we mentioned. Second, they are trying to solve some problems which other cities have, and they have the ability to make it very well. So I think that's very very important part why Vietnamese people are mostly very successful, and their community have a very good and positive image in the mainstream society. Although some Chinese people might think, hey, Vietnam is a poor country, or Vietnamese people is just, monkeys, like Vietnamese people. But actually, they've already become a mainstream community, and they have voice, and the voice is not a small voice in American policies. So actually, if they want to do something, actually they have the power to achieve it. On the other hand, compared to the Chinese little pinkies, first, they are hating each other. They don't want to have a community at all. They only have some people gathered together, but it cannot called as a community. Second, their image is very negative, and the city where it's full of Chinese peoples are always facing some problems like violence or drug dealers, some problems like that. And the hygiene problem is also very serious. In that sense, I can say Vietnam people are very good, and I'm really looking forward if I can have deeper and longer connections with them.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I'm curious is that since we're talking about Vietnamese community, I was wondering like how they are aware that there are other like Viet people in so-called southern China, or I mean the
Mhm.
Pan-Vietnamism is a thing back in
Yeah.
Vietnam in the 19th century and early 20th century, but I was wondering if they
Mhm.
are still like the normal people or are still aware of this and how they view the other Latvia people in southern China.
Oh, that's a very interesting thing. First, what they're wearing in that day is actually the stereotype of East Asian peoples you will see in the American movie or TV series, like the very red and yellow dragon, dragon long clothes things. And but most of Vietnamese men, they will have a something. What's that called? Just like a scarf, but it's around your head. And I don't know how to describe it because the Vietnamese leader told me the name, but I forgot. It's also a mark of South Vietnam, so-called minority people, but their clothes is quite so-called Chinese style. Although they also told me the pattern is very Vietnamese, which is true, but the shape of the clothes is very similar to what we can see in South China nowadays. And their knowledge about Southern China people, I try to ask if they know Yunnan, but unfortunately, most people don't know. And the part of China they know is depends on where they have been there. For example, the leader told me he went to Canton for several times and he knows some cities like Guangdong, Dongguan. But for Yunnan, he has very limited knowledge about that. So before that, I imagined maybe some of them have some, maybe their parents' generation or even further generation, which has connection with Vietnam. But it seems at least the southern part of Vietnam has less connection with Yunnan than the northern Vietnam. And the young people in this community has even less knowledge about China. They also only know maybe Beijing and Shanghai, according to what Chinese propaganda have told to this world.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the major recognition for China for every second generation Asian American who would probably only know the big cities.
Yes.
And yes, so well, thank you for your perspective to the Vietnamese community. And again, I think connecting to a community that can help us, or at least as an example that we can learn from, is very important. Because I think, as somebody who was born in the communist rule, it is not in our instinct how to connect to people
Yes.
and how to form a joint force to do things, to promote things in a way that the majority of the society can accept. So I think connecting is very important. Yeah. So let's say that
Yeah.
connecting to people is your first lesson for the past 1 year.
Yes.
Can you share us a
Yeah.
little bit like other lessons you learned, other things that you learned from this experience?
Sure. For me, to building connections with other people can be very difficult and even very tired, because according to what we know, we always heard something like individualism. I used to think that such kind of lifestyle is very cool, but in reality, always some people who called very outgoing can have better life. Actually, it's not outgoing people can have better life, but the people who have the ability to build connection with other people can have a better life. Because the biggest difference in American society compared to China is American society is their living logic is based on a win-win strategy rather than a win-loss strategy. For example, recently I'm looking for new jobs, and some of my American friends told me I should use LinkedIn to try to connect people and have a coffee talk with them. I said I tried it for several times and I did receive some response and talked a little bit. And I asked him why Americans are willing to do such kind of things, although it won't be helpful for their own life. For example, if I'm in Google, why I should tell you how I became here? It's not a competition for you guys. And he said, because everyone might have problems to at some point, and they all need to ask someone else. If you did this to someone at some point, maybe in the future you can gain it back. That's a very easy logic. And my friends also mentioned he noticed only American have such kind of logic. Other countries, even some European countries, they tend not to do so. So back to the topic about how to keep connection and be friends with others is, first, it's not depends on how, if you went to a very expensive restaurant and you were how much expensive things to them, like you know something in Chinese called 请客吃饭. You must buy some delicious food to them, and then you may have a chance to talk with them. But after you drink some alcohol in the restaurant, and the people might say, sorry, I forgot because we really drank too much that day. But actually, he or she didn't forget. He just don't want to help you, but he also didn't want to miss a very delicious banquet. But here, I feel like the investment in a new relationship, when it starts, it's quite low. But you have to be first very sincerely to other people who might give you some benefits. This benefits is not only refer to money or new job, but just connection and even sharing some very necessary information to each other. You have to be honest and sincere. This is a very important part, because I know most of people have educational background in China cannot accept this value as soon as possible, especially when they're to get used to that. If you make a lie, but you get a better chance or a better result, then why you should be honest, right? But here, if you cannot be honest, you won't have anything. And second, you must make something regularly to keep a connection. First, for example, if you want to connect it to other community leaders, you better to remember their events. For example, if you want to make connection to Hong Kong people, first, you better remember some Hong Kong political events and the date of it, because and most of the time at that date they will have protests or activities. So be sure you can attend if you have time. Be sure you can attend some of the events and go there, and don't forget to invite them when you also have your own events. By such kind of way, you can actually build the very effective and useful connection, and it's basic on a political logic rather than like just daily life friend logic, because they will know that, hey, you're not just doing one or two events just to gain some make some followers on X. You really want to do something, especially most of them have a very long traditional community here. They don't want just cooperate with one or two people. They want to see you also have a community, or you can potentially have a community in the future. Or this is the very good way. At least until now, I think it's very effective and works very well. And just don't think it will cost a lot. Yeah, sometimes it does cost a little bit, but only cost your maybe transporting fee, but mostly you need to spend time in it rather than tons of money.
Yeah, I do share your opinion of like persistence in political activities, because I think
Yes.
in the past several years, we can all witness people come and go to an ideology, jump into another, let alone the
Yeah.
activities that require the physical presence. So I think it's easy to see somebody that agree with you, whether it's
Yes.
online or, like when you met somebody in person, but it's very hard for that person to insist on like
Yes.
executing the ideology. So I think that's a very good
Yeah.
thing that you emphasize on is to persist on whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Yes. Just like Dostoevsky mentioned in his works, he said, instant love is very easy. Someone even can die for this kind of thing just to gain enough attention. But a love for a long period and long time is even a science for some people. They should spend their time and their effort to learn how to love people by real heart and in a very long period. I think that's do make a lot of sense for me. And I always, if I feel something is super difficult for me, I always use this sentence to encourage myself, because if you really want to do something, and especially something very difficult like what we're doing now, you better to prepare to face the reality that yourself might gain nothing, but not nothing, but not a big favor by such kind of thing. If you can accept that, I think for some sense you've already prepared to do so. If not, and you are also afraid of your own safety, I will suggest you maybe you better to close your ears or eyes to make you live more comfortable at least. Because I do know a lot of people, they think, to talk about political things is very cool, especially nobody dares to talk about that in China. But they didn't prepare to do something resistantly and continually, and they overlooked the danger they're facing too. Actually, the result they get is actually not very good to their own life. Yeah, but if you prepare to facing everything, I will say welcome to our circle.
Oh yeah. I think when I started to do all of this, I, like everybody else, will think that intelligence as quality is very important to activists.
Yeah.
But then
Same.
I find that intelligence is not, but maybe like the bravery is more important. And then I find
And
out that
endurance.
bravery and stamina, like the persistence,
Yeah.
is like
Persistence. Yes.
the combination. Yes. Hmm.
Yes. Some personality which mentioned in some Roman epic poems are the very important part. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So I also noticed that you mentioned some daily conversation or daily interaction with the non-political part of your life, like when you talk about the
Yeah.
job hunting of yours. And I was like, yeah, that's also a very good lesson that we can learn. So I'm curious that
Yes.
because now you live in the United States, which is very, very different from the
Yeah.
rest of the world. And you just described that,
Yeah.
the people in the States, they are not so-called individualism as people depict. But
Yes.
like I was wondering, are there anything else you find interesting that only happen in the States, like for the people and for the things that you encounter on a daily basis, or like whether it's political or not?
Okay, let me see. They really love to eat something super sweet. Is
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
that,
that,
is
that's
that
the first.
include?
Well, that's not just the
Yeah.
States. I assure you that Canada Canadians do the same.
No,
So,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no. You have no imagination on it.
Okay.
So, just kidding. I would say even in some states, you might imagine super left wing states like California, they still have much more conservative people than you imagine. And American, the States is such kind of society like you have the chance to choose what you want to be. At least till now, you still have such kind of opportunity. For example, if you want to be a conservative Christian, you will definitely find a church you would love to go. But if you want to be the supporter of LGBTQ plus movement, it's also a good place for you. Because I think the most obvious personality for the state is she's still a new world compared to Europe or especially Magnus Asia. It still have a lot of spaces for you to do anything you want. Maybe compared to 100 years ago, the space become smaller, but they still have enough spaces for most of people to do so. That's why I become very active after I arrived here because I don't want to waste the chances I might have, although I don't know if I will be successful or not. And something more important is here everyone thinks that political events and political things are essential to their life. They won't think that like political things belongs to politicians. We are just normal people. We don't care about that. No, they think policy is something related to their daily life, such as if the food price raising up too much, it might remind them who I should select in the coming selection. Or if I want to date with some girls, should I have my kids went to a public school or I might do homeschooling to them? Like every small daily life things can remind them you are not people who are living alone. You are some people living in a society and human beings are the animal who innately care about the political things, which is totally different with most of maybe East Asian peoples. Because the indifference to political things is not Chinese, it's not so-called a Chinese thing, but very common in nowadays society.
Oh yeah.
That's a kind of feeling that you feel your life is out of control and you allow something you will never meet to decide what your life can be. But I feel like Americans, although some of them are leftists, some of them are conservatives, they still believe in that my life is my own. I won't let others control my life. If I hate a Second Amendment, I don't like guns, okay, I will move to other country. If I believe people should protect themselves by policemen, I might move to a state which I can own my weapon legally. If I can't allow my kids went to public school, I will try my best to educate them. So I think they're full of energy in this sense. Although you might see so many memes like, hey, the people in the States are all overweight and they're too lazy. No, if something is related to their future, they can make decision very quickly and to do what they want, what they told you. They rarely tell lies to themselves in the very critical things. But Chinese people are like, hey, I must do this. I love freedom. I will do blah blah blah. But in reality, they might only do like 10% or 20% of what they've told you.
Yes. So it's like the old joke says, a Chinese become a right wing because he doesn't want to pay tax, and he might turn to the left wing if he want the welfare instead. So it's not like they want to pay the price to be part of the ideology. They would just want to take the advantage of that certain ideology. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like I tell this joke to my friends here, I ask them, hey, if some Chinese people ask you to take a meal in their home, what's your answer to them? Most of them said, oh, I will ask them the date and the time when they're available. I said, no, you should say, no, I've cooked in my home. And they ask me why. I would say because when they invite you, they're not really send you an invitation. They just want to show first they have enough money to give
That's
you a
so
meal.
Asian.
Second, yes. Second, they want to hear from you like, oh, I don't want to go, to check if you have enough so-called politeness or if you are well educated. But actually, it's a line made by two people, right? So actually, that's why most of Asian people think the Americans are so-called silly because they can't understand the very sophisticated language, which is Chinese. No, they're just be very straight and they already get used to being super honest at some sense. Yeah.
Definitely. I think being honest is something that unfortunately for us or for a lot of people in Asia have to learn instead of getting as an instinct. But still, I think it's worthwhile because we just save us a lot of time. And I think in the daily life or in the political activity, being honest and being straightforward saves just so much energy, at least for me, as for my
Yes.
own experience. So many saves so many energy
Yeah.
and saves so much trouble. I think all those lessons are very valuable, and I'm grateful that you're sharing this with me and with the audience. I have a general understanding of the activity that you're doing for the past years. So I was wondering,
Yeah.
like, how all of this experience shaped or reshaped your insights for the Yunnan independence, or let's just say, after this 1 year,
Mhm.
what you want to say
Mhm.
to the Yunnan independent activists or patriots all over the world again? Because last year you
Mhm.
said something, but yeah, after 1 year, what changed?
I do forget what I mentioned in details, but I hope I didn't change a lot. Actually, my plan is still the same because, according to what I see, Yunnan is a very special state which is literally lack of intellect. So I will keep on doing more propagandas in several kind of way. For example, I'm recently I cooperated with Zion to trying to make some shorts, and because Zion is very good at the memes, so
Well, thank you.
trying to keep a flattering time. So first, I'm trying to figure out more way to attract more young people to agree with us, and in a very lower and even zero invest to. I hope that we can make some like viral speed separated media, something like that, to let more people know, let more Yunnanese know what do you feel strange and feel very uncomfortable in your daily life. It's not because some reason you think, but only because you have no country. For example, if you feel you get why you have to leave your hometown and you feel very uncomfortable for your environment, and you feel the people from China always have a kind of strange pride when they facing you. Don't be nervous and don't be confused. That's just because you are from a country which is much better than China, and you just forgot it. Just like in the movie Spirited Away, the character Haku told us, sometimes you are just forget something. If you forget your name, you will forget who you are. But if you recollected your name, the name have really magic in it. It will remind you who you are and remind where you're from. I hope Yunnanese people can recollect that their name is Yunnanese rather than Chinese. And second, I also noticed compared to Cantonese people, we have very big disadvantages. It's very difficult to make a Yunnan community here. So we might keep considering how we can connect to some communities in Asia or even in Yunnan now. But of course, we'll have a big obstacle to that. So that's my biggest target in the future. To be honest, I still don't know how to achieve this, but I will try my best. And recently, I think what I can achieve easily is the first one, which is by media or by books or novels. I can make more people know where is Yunnan and let more Yunnanese know or recollect their names. And I'm also planning to do some literature works, maybe a novel, maybe a playwright or something. I'm not sure. And I will try to use my native language to write it. So, yeah, let's see.
Mm-hmm. Very valid options. Because I do resonate with you on the matter that we don't have like a big community here, and there is a very big chance that
Mhm.
we won't form a very big community
Yeah,
in North America. But still,
yes.
some intellectual work can be done to strengthen the bond, whether for the
Mhm.
people here, the patriots here, or the patriots back at
Mhm.
home. I really appreciate
Mhm.
all the stories you shared with us and all the wisdom you learned for the past year. And I think what you
Mhm.
just
Thank
said, the things that you want to say to all the patriots of Yunnan can also apply to every patriots that want their homes to be free from China. And I really,
Yes,
again, I'm
thank
really
you.
think what you did, what you provide is very valuable to all of us. And I thank you again
Thank
for
you. I hope so.
yeah, and thank you for coming back to our show, and I hope to talk to you next time.
Yes, I'll looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's our show today.
Thank you.